Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Strong Readers monthly Zoom call. I'm Deann Jones. I'm the project director for Strong Readers here in the state of Oklahoma. Glad to have you all with us today, keeping up to date on what is going on in the Strong Readers world. We're going to give just a few minutes to let everyone get out of the waiting room. I have already put the link to our agenda in the chat if you want to have that accessible. So go ahead and share my screen. Okay, let's just go ahead and get into the meeting. I know that you guys are super busy with all of your end of the school activities and things going on. So we will just go ahead and get into it. Like I said, I'm Deann Jones. I'm the project director for Strong Readers here in the state. And I have Tracy Ellison, that's one of our heroes team with us today, helping on the meeting. If you have any questions, you can drop them into the chat and Tracy will answer some, or I will stop at certain points during the meeting and address some of the questions from the chat. We're going to start with the end of the year report. The end of the year report is currently open. It is due May 31st. You can find this report in single sign-on. It is under the Strong Readers survey. And then to go into the survey, you would click on the end of the year tab, and that is where you will fill out this information. There is an updated tutorial video that you can find on our website. It's also linked here in the agenda. The tutorial video, as well as the guidance document that is updated for this year with our new question and information that is on the end of the year report this year. I have put a few questions in the agenda that I have been getting asked, been getting emails and phone calls, and so I thought I would just address them on here. One of the questions is about students, if they met the 40th percentile rank at mid-year, but then they fell below at end of year. And so the question is, do I count them as completed the program on level? So in that end of the year report where you're putting your numbers of how many students were below level at the beginning of the year, and then it asks you of those students, how many of them completed your program, meaning your intervention program, on level, and then it'll tabulate how many completed not on level. So the situation being discussed is if a student was at 40th percentile mid-year, but then when you gave that end of the year screening, they fell back below the 40th percentile. And the question is, what do we count them as? Are we counting them as they completed the program on level or below level? So the answer to that is not really a cut and dry answer. The answer to that is someone with more complete knowledge of that student needs to make that determination. Instead of me just saying, you know, we're only going to go by this one score at the end of the year, it would be a better representation of your student's ability if someone at your school who has better complete knowledge of that student can make that determination, considering all the data. What does their progress monitoring look like? What about their classroom performance? Do you consider this student to be on level? Do you think, if you think one of those scores was, you know, if they were on level beginning of mid-year and then at end year they scored well below level, do you think that was a good measure of their ability? Should you let them retest? So that question is going to fall back to the district, and the answer would be have someone that has a more complete knowledge of that student determine which category they should be counted in. Another question we got, not really a question, but just a statement, is that the number of students who have completed the program not on level is not updating for you. So that's when you're completing that, you put how many completed on level, and it should automatically change your students who are completed not on level. And the answer to that is it's not going to do it while you're still on that table. But once you complete all of your information and click save at the bottom, it will update that. So if you put that information in and then push save and go back into your report, that number should be updated for you. We had several questions about the students with IEPs. So on the question that ask about students on IEPs, which IEPs count? The answer to that is only students IEPs that have reading goals or speech IEPs with language goals. We don't want to count our speech IEPs if they're articulation only goals. But if they have language goals included in their speech IEP, you can count those. And then any IEPs with reading goals would count in your number of students with IEPs. That question is actually asked, it'll ask on the website guidance as well as on the EOI. And on all of those cases, we're only talking about reading goal IEPs and speech IEPs with language goals. The next question I get asked quite frequently is, if a student was unable to complete the dyslexia screener, do I count them as have been screened, and do I count them at risk? The answer to that is no. The situation for this is if you're giving a screener to a student, maybe a non-verbal student or a student who for some reason is unable to complete the screener, and you discontinue the screener, we do not want you to count them in either of those categories. So you would not count them as being screened because you did not complete the screener. And we're not going to count them at risk because they did not have a screening that confirmed that they were at risk. So we would not count them in either one of those counts for the report. We've had lots of questions about the newly enrolled question. So one question, and I understand why this is a little confusing, at the bottom of the report on the EOI, there's a section that asks about website requirements. And one of the questions is newly enrolled students. And so the question has been, are we talking about newly enrolled students, only ones that are on the slip? But the answer to that is no. We actually want your total number of students that have been enrolled in your school for less than 2 years, regardless of their slip status. So I think it asked specifically about K-3 students who are newly enrolled. And once again, we'll just talk about this a little bit. So it's talking newly enrolled as students who've been with you for less than 2 school years. So right now we're finishing up this school year. So we're looking at, were they with us this school year and last school year? So for a kiddo who's finishing 2nd grade right now, that means, were they with you in 1st grade and 2nd grade? And if the answers to that is yes, then you would not count them as newly enrolled. If they came at Christmas of 1st grade and now they're finishing 2nd grade, you do count them as newly enrolled because they have not been with you for 2 school years. We're actually counting October 1st as our cutoff for that. So if they're finishing 2nd grade right now, but they came after October 1st of their 1st grade year, then they are newly enrolled. Kindergarten students, if they were in pre-K with you and they did all of pre-K and kinder with you, they are not newly enrolled. But if they enrolled as a kindergartner in your district, then they are newly enrolled because they have not been with you for 2 school years. Tracy, do we have any other questions about end of the year report?
So there are quite a few questions about the 60th percentile and the 40th percentile.
Okay.
So
In general, for all questions, strong readers, if we use the terms grade level target, we're talking about 40th percentile rank. If we use the term proficient or proficiency, we're talking about 60th percentile rank. So I know there are several places where asked on the end of the year report and as well as on the website requirement about proficiency. And when it says proficiency, we're talking about 60th percentile rank. And I tried to put that in the guidance document for both the end of the year report and the website requirement, as well as in some of the descriptions on the actual report. But if you see the word proficiency, we're talking 60th. The reason we didn't so this 60th also goes along with this year's new requirement for notices of proficiency, but we didn't send notice of proficiency for kindergarten, and the website requirement is asking proficiency for kindergarten too. So that's why we didn't just say, like, what's the number of proficiency notices you've sent? First of all, because we don't send them for kindergarten, but also you're not required to send notices of proficiency after end of the year testing. So if you had a student who was somewhere below 60th, say they were at the 50th all year long, and then you come to the end of the year and they're scoring at 62, you're not required to send that parent a notice of proficiency at end of the year, but we would want you to count them in your numbers of students who had scored proficient at some point during the school year. So you would count them. Tracy, is there any more specific questions about 40th versus?
So, no, I think you answered that, but there is a question about printing the end of the year report from the website.
Okay, is it
It's not working, they say.
Okay. I
And-
thought that that had been updated, so I will have to check on that. At some point I had printed one and I thought it was working, but I will go into a districts and look at it and see. And if it's not, I will get with OMES and we'll get that worked on.
Okay, there's also a question. This is more of a collaboration question. So is there anyone that has figured out how to report the newly enrolled students?
Yeah, you mean as far as getting the number?
Yes.
I do think that, yeah, I've had several schools, and I think that's going to depend on what school management student management system you're using. I don't know if there's a way that they can filter those. Also, you're only counting your currently enrolled students. So if you had students who've been with you in less than 2 years, but they've already moved, you don't need to count them in this. So it's currently enrolled students who've been with you less than 2 years. So, yeah, that's going to look different at every site or every school, depending on what school management, student management system they're using with. So if you're working with a certain one and you found out, hey, this is the report we need to run, this is the filters we need to put on, these are the buttons we need to click, yeah, let us know that stuff. Because we definitely want to share that. We get that information out to our heroes who are working with schools and let them know the best way to get that. Because I do know that that has been a struggle for some, but then for others, we haven't heard that it is. So hopefully we're finding out ways to make that number accessible for districts.
I'm copying their responses so we can compile them.
Okay. Perfect.
I think that's all for now.
Okay. So the next thing is only for people who are using the ELQA for assessing their kindergarteners. And so one of the questions that had came up was, now that we're having, we haven't been sending notice of proficiency to kindergartners. So we haven't had to determine this, who's at 60th percentile for kindergarten. Well, now with the website requirement where you are going to be asked what a number and percentage of your kindergartners who scored proficiency, we had a question from our schools who used the ELQA that, how do we determine that? So I reached out to ELQA. So you can see on here the question that was asked about how to determine proficiency for kindergarten students for our website requirement. And the response from them is that they only have one score, that they're not going to give us like 40th percentile, 60th percentile. They just have these are their scores for beginning of year, mid-year, end of year. And if a child is flagged at risk, they're either flagged at risk or they're flagged proficient. So they don't have multiple categories for us. So with this information, we are saying that if a kindergartner scores above these scores, we're considering them on grade level and we're considering them proficient. Like I said, this isn't going to affect notices for proficiency. It's only going to affect that reporting requirement. So if a kindergartner is above these scores, you're going to count them as proficient if you're giving the ELQA, and you would count them in that number for your website requirement. Let's move on to the website requirement. So this has been a big challenge. And if you have, first, let me say we didn't change any information. So if you've already been gathering your information for this, we did not add any extra information to it. However, we did have to change our format some because we were informed that our format as we had released it was not ADA compliant. So with some of the information the mandates that are going to be on school districts sometime next school year, that everything you post has to be ADA compliant, we definitely want what we're providing to you to be ADA compliant. So we've had to rework our form so that it is ADA compliant and can be read by screen readers. And so that new one was just posted this past Friday. So if you downloaded the format previous to last Friday, you need to download the most current one from our website. I do have it linked here. And let me talk just a little bit more about some of the things. Another thing we had changed, I think in the previous one, we changed since last meeting. So on last April, we were having discussions about expenditures and how that was kind of hard to calculate by site instead of by district. And so we did, after talking to a lot of school districts, decide that that would be a better representation of the expenditures if we did the expenditures at district level. So we have changed that now. So you're going to have all of the other information. And then at the bottom, we put the school district policy and the expenditures. And those two things would be the same for your district. So we just moved that expenditures down to the bottom by the board policy. And here's where you can download our format that is ADA compliant. I do want to note that we have been told to tell you that we have this form that we're providing meets ADA accessibility requirements. It is highly recommended that you use this format. If you convert it to any other format, such as a PDF or anything else before you post it, it is the district's responsibility for ensuring its continued ADA compliance. It is an Excel sheet as we've sent it out to you. Some of the things that we have in place to protect privacy of our students, where it's going to, if you enter a number lower than 10, it's going to put less than 10 instead of putting 6 or 3 or whatever you put on there. If you put any numbers on there that are less than 10, you need to lock the cells before you post it. So that information can still be protected, because if the cell isn't locked and someone clicks in the cell, it gives the formula at the top and then it shows what's actually in the cell instead of what's being displayed on the cell. So if you don't have numbers less than 10, that's not going to affect you. But if you're putting any numbers less than 10 in the information, specifically about enrollment or IEP students, then you will want to make sure that you lock those cells before you post that, so that your student data privacy is maintained. The guidance document does give more information, more specific information about each question, and maybe a little bit more guidance than what I can give in the short amount of time that we have today. I will say that I have not updated the guidance document since we reordered and rearranged the format, so it may not match in chronological order. The format, I do need to redo that, but the information hasn't changed itself. So the guidance should be good. I just need to go back in and maybe reorder it to match the form a little bit more closely. We've also been told that if you take this format, the Excel format, and you move it into your Google Drive, it changes the format and it will not, it messes some things up in it. So it is not recommended that you put it into your Google Drive or put it in Google Sheets, because it will mess with the formatting. Okay, let me look and see if we've got some questions about the formats.
Okay, so one thing is they're asking, is the tier one, it was one tier of improvement from beginning to end, or would the middle qualify in that?
If they've improved a tier at any point during the school year, you can count them as improved. So I see a question asking about the end of the year report. We didn't change anything on end of the year. From last week, nothing's changed on end of year report. I'm talking about the format that you have, that you're required to post on your website. That you don't have to have posted till September 1st of 2025. So that's what we've changed. So if you've already submitted your end of the year report, that's fine. As long as your information was good, we're not changing anything about that. What we're changing is the actual format that will be posted on your website on September 1st. I see a question again about data and asking about, so are we using district data? Okay, let me clarify. On where it's asking about your student numbers, like how many students you have in kindergarten, how many of those students are below level, and how many of those students scored proficient, that's going to be site. So any of the actual student data is going to be site level. The only thing that is district level is the expenditures. The very bottom portion of the website format where it has, I mean, I guess your school board policy is probably district 2. So just the district policy and the expenditures are at district level. And so that would just look the same. If you have 6 elementary sites, those 2 sections would look identical on all 6 of those website formats. But the data at the top about your number of students would be specific to each site. I see questions about in tiers of improvement, even if they dip back down. Yes, I would say you're still going to count them because they did show improvement at some point during the year, because I think our guidance actually says if they made improvement at any point during the year. So if they improved a tier during the year, we are going to count them as improved. I see lots of people saying they found ways and reports that work well for them to find that. So I'm glad to see people finding ways, and maybe we can compile those, and then also this has people are sharing information with each other. So that's great. So yes, someone's saying yes, on single sign-on, everything you put in on single sign-on is by your site. The only thing I'm saying that is by district is for this website format to be posted on your district, because on your, we did not ask expenditures on your, end of the year report. That's only for the website requirement. For students continue. Okay, I see a question about students who are going to go to 4th grade. So, and that question actually says 60th percentile. We would not even really be looking at that on 60th percentile, but what we will be looking is 40th. So if you have a 3rd grader previously, when you promoted from 3rd grade on a probationary status, and they went from 3rd to 4th on probationary status, those students stayed on, at the time was a IPRI, and that is how you documented their interventions and support in 4th and 5th, as long as they still were performing below the 40th percentile rank. What's going to happen this year with our students, since we're not probationally promoting anyone, if a student is on a slip in 3rd grade, and at the end of 3rd grade, they are still scoring below the 40th percentile rank, and you choose to promote them to 4th grade, you need to continue their slip in 4th grade and 5th grade, as long as they are still not scoring on the 40th percentile rank. If they come back to 4th grade in that beginning of the year testing window, they score at the 50th percentile rank, you can just continue their slip. But so in that way, it's going to be much like we were doing with the probationarily promoted students, but we will be doing it with any student who was on a slip and was promoted while still scoring below the 40th percentile rank. There will not be documentation for probationary promotion, because that is now all promotion decisions and retention decisions are made at the district. So any documentation for that would be whatever your district requires. We, as the state, will not be having any promotion or retention documentation requirements. Okay, let's move on to the funding checklist. This is no new information here. This is the same information I talked about last month, but I just want to go over it one more time because this is very new. We have not had much oversight on how districts were spending their strong readers funds, and now that accountability is about to be increased. So for the first time this summer, when districts are reporting their district expenditures between July 1st and September 1st, any expenses that are marked with strong readers funds, which is Project 367, if they use an unapproved function or object code, it is going to be rejected and cause your district's expenditure report to be rejected. So I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that this funding checklist that is on our Strong Readers for Schools webpage, I also have it linked here in the agenda. It has the full list of codes that are accepted, and our state aid management system has it locked down where these are the only codes that are accepted. So if you put in a different code that is not on here with Strong Readers Funds 367, it's going to get kicked back when they turn in the expenditure report. I do have one other thing I do want to note on here is we've had several schools reach out and say, hey, you have a code on here for paying transportation, bus drivers in the summer, or whatever it is. And this code is not being recognized in our system. So what I've been told from our state aid office is that every code that is on this checklist is being approved by the state of Oklahoma. So if it is not working for your school, it is something to do with your state, with your student management system, whatever it is that your system that your school uses. So if that's the case, you need, if it's saying that a code is invalid, that is a code that you got from our checklist, you need to contact your school management program and have them add that code to their list, because it is not being rejected from us. It is being rejected by your school management program system. So if it's not going through, contact them. If you need to give them this checklist or have them contact someone at the State Department and say these codes should be going through, we need for these to be able to work.
Okay, Deann, we have one more question about slips.
Okay.
If a student was not on a slip in third grade, but then they score below the 40th percentile in fourth and fifth, what do we do?
Nothing. I mean, I can't say nothing. I really do hope you're helping the kid and giving them some support, but it is not mandated for you to add them on a slip. If they came out of third grade, they were not on a slip, and they go to fourth, and then they score below the 40th percentile rank, it is not a requirement under Strong Readers Act that they be placed on one. If you want to still go ahead and use our form, if you're going to provide interventions for them and you want to use our form, you are free to do that, but it is not required. Our requirements are only K through 3 and then ongoing for those students who were on one. So for a fourth grader who is scoring below the 40th percentile rank for the first time, once again, you can provide them interventions, you can document them, you can even use our form to document them, but it is not required for you to place them on a slip in above third grade if they were not on one already. Okay, I see a question about fourth and fifth graders with an IEP, and that question is correct. We're still staying with that. That's what we did previously, is if a student was previously, if they were probationarily promoted, and in fourth and fifth grade, if they were on an IEP, they no longer had to be on a slip. We are also continuing that as well now. So if a student is on an IEP, they're coming out of third grade, going to fourth, if they're on an IEP, you can just document their interventions on their IEP in fourth and fifth grade, and they are not required to have a slip in fourth and fifth grade. So that question, that is correct. Okay, I will go on and discuss the rest of this, and then we'll see if we have any other questions. We have quite a few professional development opportunities coming up this summer. The Reading League of Oklahoma is going to have a professional development on June 20th, and that is in the Putnam City area at Capps Middle School. This is the link where you can register for their professional development. And then OK MTSS conference is on June 19th and 20th. And I do not have the link for that yet, but that is at the Reed Center in Midwest City. And then Inspire OK is going to be June 27th in Norman. And I don't have the link for that one, but that should be coming out soon. And then this was previously called the Oklahoma Administrators Conference, but now it is named OSDE's School Governance Conference. And that is going to be July 31st and August 1st at UCO in Edmond. And we just got the link for this today. So this is the link for any administrators who want to register for that school governance conference. I will be there at that discussing anything new going on with strong readers and all of the reporting and guidance for strong readers for next school year. And then our big thing going on this summer is Pages Across the Plains. So Pages Across the Plains is literacy professional development. It is free to any educator in the state, and they're having their big kickoff one in Edmond at the Edmond Conference Center on June 6th. And this is the link for that. And then we have 2 weeks in July where we're going to be across the state at all of these different locations. You can see we're from the west to the east, we're going everywhere. There's a couple sites that we still don't have the registration links open for. We don't have our Muskogee one, and then we're still working on securing one more venue for the July 23rd conference. And so those links will be coming out soon, but all of these links are live and open and you can register for them. This will be a 1 day, 8 to 4 o'clock. Well, I know this one's 8 to 4. I'm not for sure if these are 8 to 4, but you can look when you click on there. But I know they're 1 day free of charge, and it's all literacy focused. It is going to be taught by our literacy staff office, our heroes team, and they will be providing some good evidence-based practices and literacy instruction for teachers across our state. So make sure you register for one of those that's coming near you. And this is our last meeting for the school year, and we will not be having these during the summer. And then I will be back in the fall with you guys. So you can, as always, you will be able to find the recordings on our website. That we also have the YouTube channel that they're on, and then we just post the links to those on our website, usually the evening of this meeting or by tomorrow, possibly. We should have it live and hopefully posted on our website as soon as possible. It's usually on YouTube very soon, like maybe that night or the next morning. Sometimes it takes a little longer to get it on our website, but we will have this meeting recording posted there. And then here's the agenda. So before we sign off, let me go see if there's any other questions for us to look at. Okay, so I see a thing about the accreditation officers sent a unified format, and unfortunately that was before I do know that the REOs sent those out, but unfortunately that was before we changed it to be ADA compliant. So I do need to make sure that I get that out to the REOs again, but the one that is on our website right now is the most current one, and it is the one that is ADA compliant. And like I said, it was just posted last Friday. So make sure that you are downloading that one. Okay. I see some questions about Amira, and so the question is about what parts we're paying for. The State Department, we do know we have funding to pay for the Amira screening for every school district next school year. The question is about the learning platform part of it, which is, I think, $15 a student or something like that. So we don't know if we'll be able to pay for that. This year, we were able to pay for the learning platform for many of our districts, but it is all a funds related thing. So that depends on how many schools sign up for the screener. If we have every school district in the state sign up for the screener, then we would not have funds to pay for the learning platform. If, a smaller amount of schools sign up for the screener, then we would have money left in our budget to pay for the learning platform for districts. So the best thing to do about that is kind of talk to your Amira rep, because they keep up with that. I don't think they're gonna be able to give you a for sure answer on that yet, because we still have to have time for districts to sign up for next year. And so we will not know yet if we're able to pay for the learning platform until in the fall sometime. Board policy info. I think I talked about this last. I know I've had it in the newsletter. I'm not sure if I've talked about it at the meeting or not, but we are not providing a sample school board policy. Our legal team told us to instruct districts that in all matters of policy, they should consult with their district legal to help them devise a policy that meets all of the requirements in statute. So there are schools who already have them and have them posted on their website if you want to research and look at other schools' policies. But ultimately, once you have your policy drafted and all of that, it would be up to your just individual district to consult with legal advice and making sure that your policy is covering everything it needs to. And then we are asking for that on your website requirement. That does have to be posted. It can just be a link, because obviously our form has just a small spot for that. So you're able to just put a link to wherever you have that board policy posted on your website. There's a question again about students who did not meet grade level target on the screener, and yes, we're only counting currently enrolled students. So if a student left you, then on the website form, you are not counting them as not meeting the grade level target, because we're only counting our currently enrolled students. There's a question about signing up for Amira. There is still a place on our on our State Department website. There is a page that's Amira, and there is a place on there that you can go submit a form, and then an Amira rep will contact you to get that done. The website information, yes, will only be updated once a year. So at the end of the school year, you would be compiling all of your information, and then it has to be posted by September 1st of the following school year with information from the previous year. And so, yes, you would only update that by September 1st each school year. Amira, if you are already signed up with it, they are assuming that you are continuing. So if you are signed up with Amira on our state funded one, then you do not have to do anything to continue it. If you wish to discontinue it, you would have to contact the Amira rep and let them know. But otherwise, I think they are considering you as being enrolled again for next year. Okay, I want to make sure that we let you, oh wait, let's see some more. Kindergarten students that do not meet beginning of the year benchmark are put on a slip at the beginning of the year. Yes, that changed this year. Under the previous legislation, you were not required to give the dyslexia screener to kindergarten students till mid-year, and you were not required to put them on a slip till mid-year. With the new legislation, they took out that consideration for kindergarten, and now kindergarten is following the same rules as all the other grades. And so if they are below level at the beginning of the year benchmark, they are placed on a slip. Why do they not get a letter of proficiency at mid-year? And once again, we're talking about proficiency, we're talking about 60th percentile rank, but the reason is it wasn't put into legislation. So in legislation where it talks about the notice of the proficiency, it specifically says 1st through 3rd grade. Okay. I think that's all for today. If you have any other questions that were not answered that you need to know, you can email me at deann.jones@sde.ok.gov. Or you can also email our literacy inbox, which is literacy@sde.ok.gov. And there is a team of us that look at those. And then I hope you guys have a great end of the year school year and have a great summer and rested up and ready to go back at it next year, helping these students be able to read. Thank you for all you do and all that you're investing in our young Oklahoma readers every day. Thank you. Have a good day.